YouTube world, my name is Nicholas Montez, and you're watching my YouTube channel, Nicholas Montez. Okay, so, like I said, we're reviewing the next DreamWorks film this week, and, it's Mr. Peabody and Sherman, and, if you're wondering how I'm reviewing this, I'm actually reviewing this Monday night, April 19th at 6 p.m. Well, almost 7 actually. And if you're wondering how I got this film done, well, mostly when it comes to DreamWorks films, I mostly get these films done because I mostly get these films done because early, like if it's like on the first day, because I mostly watched them like in the morning. But this film, I actually started watching it like last night, so that's kind of how I got it done a little bit early. Like this morning, I literally just watched like a couple more minutes of it, and then I was done with it. So I basically watched most of it yesterday because dinner was kind of late a little bit, and yeah, and I don't know, I was kind of bored, so I decided, hey, why not just watch it early a little bit and not just wait for Monday. So, and just to get an early start. So yeah. And before we get started with the review, I just gotta say, I think I might have found my favorite movie of this series that I'm doing. That's just want to say. I don't want to spoil what the score is or what are my thoughts on it, which we'll talk about in a minute. But let's get into the review. For me, this was actually a very good film. I don't really know where to start with this movie. Let's just kind of start from the beginning, where it kind of starts off with Mr. Peabody telling his story as people would not adopt him as their dog because he would be too smart. As like they would show someone throwing a stick and they would be like, why? Wouldn't you just have to throw it again? And it's like it also handles and so I thought it handled so let's start with the jokes. The jokes in here I thought were amazing. There's just so many jokes left and right about, and there's even jokes about jokes themselves, and it just handles it in a very interesting way. So yeah, the humor is just on spot in this film. And there's also just a lot of moments where Sherman is like, where Mr. Peabody says something very, very smart, and then Sherman's like, I don't get it. And then it goes with the other characters that we get to see in the film too. So the humor is just very stylized in this. It's just very cool in this film. Also, you just gotta talk about some of the hilarious stuff about this premise, where you basically take this premise about a dog being very smart, of doing all these things. Granted, it's probably not the most influential thing DreamWorks or animation movies have ever done, but for this movie, it actually kind of worked, especially the way they kind of introduced time travel into the mix, where it actually kind of does get complicated at times. And it's just kind of clever the way, you know, all the things are put together well with the story. And to me, this, I don't know, I love this movie so much. It's so hard to talk about because there's so many things to like. From the humor, to the jokes, to the characters, it works so well, and I love the way it works. I also like how it's kind of fresh, where we've never really seen, sure, we've seen animated films like this, where they do so many things at so many times that they just don't work. This is kind of one of those films where it goes at it and it all works. And that's kind of why I love this movie, is because just does like a great thing with everything. Also, some of the characters I thought were pretty interesting. Sherman and Mr. Peabody, it has some emotional wavelength to it. I thought. I just thought all the whole mixture just felt well together. And there's even a scene where he starts like playing the drums, and like it just works so well. And when we get into the time travel stuff, it's so cool because we go back to Abraham Lincoln, we go back to we go back to George Washington, the Trojan War. Like, it's so cool to see all of this stuff in one movie, and it's just very cool the way how they dive deep into history and all that stuff, and it's just a very cool film. Also, the animation is also very good. When the fights are happening, it's fantastic, especially when they do the way back and they're traveling through time. It looks pretty cool. Looks kind of like the portal stuff in Avengers Endgame, which I actually thought was pretty cool. And also, another thing you really gotta talk about is that this movie has an amazing score. Danny Elfman just delivers such a fantastic score, and I love it. I love the music in this film. It's so fantastic. It's kind of surprising because because he did the music of the Batman 1989 film, you never really think that he would do the score for a film like this. And I don't know. Maybe that's just me. But and also there's some emotional labeling to it, as I said, about, there's some themes in here with Mr. Peabody and Sherman. And also, I liked how they casted Max Charles into the mix, as if you guys do not know who that is, he's actually the guy that plays Kion in The Lion Guard, which is one of my personal favorite TV shows of all time. It's a Disney Junior show. I know I watch Disney Junior shows and I'm 14 years old. But hey, I'm always there for The Lion King. Speaking of The Lion King, the guy that actually did this movie also directed the original Lion King, so that's a cool thing. So I'm not saying it's like the best movie of all time, but for me, I personally enjoyed it, and I personally just loved it. And you can say that when the movie ended, it did satisfy me. So that's all I gotta say about the good on this one. Now let's move on to the bad. Now, I'm not saying that there's nothing wrong with this movie. Well, I mean, there are things wrong why I'm talking about the bad. But there's really just, one issue with the movie, and that kind of holds it back from being, my favorite film of the whole franchise. Well, the studio, perhaps. And that is, I felt like that some of the relationships I don't really think worked. Now, obviously, the chemistry between Mr. Peabody and Sherman was awesome. I love their relationship. They have such sweet chemistry together. But I felt like there was a bit of a part with there's this one part in the movie where Penny calls him a dog, and then when Mr. Peabody is putting Sherman to sleep, he tells about what happened at school, and sorry. And they just, it doesn't, he doesn't say anything about it, and it doesn't make sense. And then in the finale of the film, Sherman says, "I'm a dog too." And I'm not really sure if I connect with that. And I'm not, I felt like they could have explored that just a little bit more. And then also, the relationship between Sherman and Penny, I don't think really works. It feels like the relationship of Thor and Jane in the first Thor, where in this film, in Mr. Peabody and Sherman, they basically are enemies. They start out as enemies, and then they're friends over a night. And Thor's kind of like that, except it's the opposite, where they're basically, I don't know if you would call them friends, but like partners. And then they start dating over like one weekend. And so like what are you talking about? So that's really just the only issue with this film, is that some of the relationships, and there's a couple of some of the relationships with the characters I don't really think works, but that does not hold this film back from being one of the best and most creative and fresh animated films of all time. Well, I wouldn't really call it fresh, but it's very creative of how it's kind of put together. So I love this movie. So before I give you my score for Mr. Be sure to tell me down below, what did you guys think of Mr. Peabody and Sherman? Did you guys love it? Did you guys hate it? Or right there in between? Let's get some nice discussions going. With that said, let's get on with those scores. Alright, so that is it for my Mr. Peabody and Sherman review, but we're not done yet. We have one more thing to do, and that is to see where does Mr. Peabody and Sherman rank in my DreamWorks list. And you guys are actually going to be very surprised with the list because it is very, very high. So, without further ado, let's get in to see where it lands. Alright, so that is it for my Mr. Peabody and Sherman ranking. I hope you guys like my placement of the movie. I could not put it above the first two Kung Fu Panda films because they're just so classic movies, and their ideas kind of work a little bit better. Their premises work a lot better in their films than Mr. Peabody and Sherman does. But thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. My Instagram name is Marvel6, and my TikTok name is Marvel1Fan. If you guys don't understand those names, head to my About section so you can follow me on those not streaming services, social medias. I always mess up those words. Also, I'm also on Letterboxd, so if you want to follow me on there, it's the same name as my Instagram, Marvel_6_, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.